He was the voice of God to an entire town, respected, adored, trusted. A devoted husband. A proud father. A leader people turned to in their darkest hours. But one summer night, an 18-year-old boy vanished without a trace. Not just any boy. His son's best friend. And as the town prayed for answers, a terrible truth began to surface, one that would rip the heart out of a community. The pastor had a secret. A secret he was willing to kill for. Because that missing boy? He wasn't just a friend of the family. He was the pastor's secret lover. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a betrayal layered in silence, shame, and a love that could never see the light of day. And when the truth finally came out, it was already too late. Stay with me. Because this story will break your heart, and then chill you to the bone. Tap like if you're ready to uncover what really happened. And subscribe, for the kind of truth they pray you never find. Jackson, Mississippi. Summer of 2022. A town where the church bells still ring every Sunday, and people still wave at each other from their porches. In this part of the South, faith is more than tradition, it's survival. And no one embodied that more than Pastor Gerald Miles. To the outside world, Pastor Miles was everything a man of God should be. Charismatic. Disciplined. Devoted. His sermons could move grown men to tears, and his congregation adored him. He had a loving wife, Cynthia. 2 teenage sons. A perfect home just 2 blocks from the church. He preached against sin, warned his flock about temptation, and held court like a prophet in a suit and tie. And then there was Jamal Carter. Just 18. High school senior. Wide smile. Warm heart. A track star who dreamed of making music and moving his mom out of their 2-bedroom apartment on the east side. He spent more time at the Miles house than his own. Ate dinner at their table. Went on family trips. Called Gerald Pops like he was his second dad. Jamal and Elijah Miles, Pastor Gerald's oldest son, had been best friends since the 7th grade. Thick as blood. The kind of friendship that runs deep in small towns where options are few, and bonds are everything. So when Jamal vanished on a humid Friday night in late July, no one could understand it. He wasn't the type to disappear. He had just posted a TikTok video earlier that day, laughing with Elijah in their living room. He had plans that weekend. A studio session. A date. But that night, he was gone. Elijah told police they were hanging out at his house when Jamal got a text and said he needed to meet someone. Elijah figured it was a girl. Maybe someone he didn't want anyone to know about. He never came back. At first, the town assumed the worst. Maybe he ran off. Maybe he was robbed. But then, things got strange. Jamal's phone started going straight to voicemail. His social media went silent. His GPS history, wiped clean. His mother, Shonda, filed a missing persons report within 12 hours. She told police, "My baby's in trouble. I feel it in my bones." By Sunday, the entire church was in prayer. Pastor Miles stood before his congregation with trembling hands, voice breaking, eyes wet. "I know Jamal," he said. "And I know God will bring him home." But not everyone believed him. Because behind the pastor's grief, something didn't feel right. The search for Jamal Carter swept through Jackson like a storm. Flyers were stapled to telephone poles. Candlelight vigils lined the church steps. Teenagers posted TikToks begging for help. And still, no trace. No leads. No answers. Police interviewed Elijah again. His story didn't change. He said Jamal left around 10:15 p.m. Said he didn't know who the text was from. Said he never thought it was anything serious. But Jamal's mother wasn't buying it. She knew her son. Knew he would never just vanish without calling. Especially not without telling her where he was going. Especially not when he had a beat he was excited to drop that weekend. Then came the first break. Tuesday morning, just 4 days after Jamal vanished, a sanitation worker found a cell phone tossed into a storm drain off I-55. Cracked screen. Water damaged. But it matched the description of Jamal's. Forensics got to work. Inside, they found fragments, bits of texts that hadn't fully deleted. Messages sent to an unknown number. No contact name. Just a burner phone. But what those fragments said would crack the case wide open. I miss you already. Tonight was everything. I hate sneaking around. He's your son. I don't want to be a secret anymore. Detectives were stunned. They ran the number. It didn't trace back to any known account. But the purchase of the burner phone? Made in cash. 2 weeks prior. At a gas station 5 minutes from Cornerstone Baptist Church. It was the first real lead. But it raised more questions than answers. Who was Jamal seeing that night? Who was he tired of hiding from? And who, exactly, was he? Investigators turned back to the pastor. They'd noticed something odd in his interviews. He was cooperative, but controlled. Emotional, but only in public. He never asked to see the recovered phone. Never once asked if Jamal had said anything before he left. And then there was the footage. Cornerstone Baptist had security cameras, 2 inside, 3 outside. On the night Jamal disappeared, all of them glitched. No footage from 9 p.m. to midnight. A full blackout. Church officials said it was a server error. The system had been acting up. But one deacon, a quiet man named Lewis, mentioned something else. He said he saw Pastor Miles at the church late that night. After hours. Alone. With the lights off. When asked why he was there, the pastor said he forgot his Bible. But investigators were beginning to suspect he forgot something else. Something far more dangerous than scripture. Detectives started digging deeper into Pastor Gerald Miles. His public life was polished, clean records, no complaints, nothing overtly suspicious. But beneath that image, something darker was beginning to emerge. The church's IT technician, barely 20, quiet, kept to himself, reached out to police. Said he had something they might want to see. When they met with him, he handed them a backup drive. Quietly explained that the church's security system didn't just save locally, it also synced to a cloud archive he had access to. The footage hadn't been deleted. It had been hidden. And what that footage showed, changed everything. 10:04 p.m., the night Jamal disappeared. Jamal is seen entering the church through the side door. Alone. No bag. No phone in his hand. He walks quickly, nervously. His head down. 10 minutes later, Pastor Miles enters through the back. They both meet inside the sanctuary. There's no audio. But their body language says everything. Jamal looks agitated. He's gesturing. Stepping back. Pastor Miles moves toward him. He grabs his arm. Jamal pulls away. And then, they vanish off-screen. Into the pastor's office. That was the last time Jamal Carter was seen alive. Investigators re-interviewed the pastor. He didn't know about the footage yet. They asked if Jamal had ever come to the church that night. No, he said. Last time I saw him was at my house. He and Elijah were watching a movie. They asked if he'd ever had a private relationship with Jamal. He paused. Blinked. Smiled. Like what? He asked. Detectives didn't push, yet. They needed more. And they got it. Forensics had finally pulled data from Jamal's recovered phone. The text fragments were clearer now. The number Jamal had been messaging? It was tied to a SIM card purchased with a fake ID, but the GPS data placed it in one consistent location, night after night. Pastor Gerald Miles's house. Inside the bedroom wing. And then, the message that sealed it. Don't forget I know what you said to your wife. The implication was loud. Jamal had leverage. Jamal was threatening to expose something. Not just an affair. A secret. A dangerous one. Detectives secured a search warrant for Gerald's home and office. In his private church study, they found a second phone, hidden inside a hollowed-out Bible on the shelf. Password protected. But not encrypted. Inside, hundreds of texts. Photos. Voice notes. Every single one, between him and Jamal. The relationship wasn't casual. It was romantic. It was intimate. And it had been going on for almost a year. Jamal had confided in no one, except his cousin, Darius, who finally came forward when police showed him the photos. Darius said Jamal was in love. But scared. Said he wanted out. That he was tired of being someone's dirty little secret. He had told Darius 3 days before he vanished, if he doesn't tell the truth soon, I will. Now investigators had a motive. Gerald wasn't just hiding a relationship. He was hiding a betrayal. Not just of his church. Not just of his marriage. But of his own son. Because the boy he'd been secretly seeing was his son's best friend. The day the photos hit the investigation board, everything changed. Detectives stared in silence at the images, selfies taken in the pastor's office, in the church parking lot, even inside his home. Jamal's face always smiling. Gerald's, more guarded. But unmistakable. And yet, as clear as the evidence was, there was still no body. That made prosecution risky. No matter how damning the messages were, without proof of death, without remains, Gerald Miles couldn't be charged with murder. But the tide was about to shift. 3 weeks after Jamal's disappearance, a hunter walking near the edge of a wooded property just outside Jackson caught a stench that stopped him cold. Something foul. Rancid. Wrong. He followed it down a slope, past the edge of the creek. There, under a makeshift cover of leaves, sticks, and a torn blue tarp, lay a decomposing body. No ID. No phone. But a gold chain with a small cross still clung to the neck. The same one Jamal wore every day. A gift from his mother on his 17th birthday. The autopsy confirmed it. Jamal Carter. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. Manual strangulation. Signs of a struggle. Defensive wounds on his arms. And under his fingernails, skin cells. DNA. The match came back in less than a week. Gerald Miles. They arrested him on a Thursday afternoon, right in the middle of a church board meeting. The moment he saw the officers walk in, he stood from the head of the table and whispered something to the associate pastor. Then he turned and said, "I know why you're here." Outside, reporters were already gathering. Inside the interrogation room, Gerald kept calm. He didn't ask for a lawyer right away. Didn't cry. He sat with his hands folded, eyes on the table. "I never wanted this to happen," he said quietly. "But I couldn't let him destroy everything." Detectives leaned in. "Did you kill him?" He nodded once. "Tell us why." His voice didn't crack. "Not once." He said he'd tell Elijah. Said he'd go public. "I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let the church find out what I did. Who I was." He said Jamal had threatened to post the photos. Said he begged him not to. Said it all got out of hand. "I just needed him to be quiet," he whispered. "I just needed him to stop." The recording ran for nearly 2 hours. No yelling. No anger. Just quiet, chilling calm. The confession was enough. Prosecutors prepared for trial. But there was still more fallout to come. Because Gerald Miles wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Inside his home, detectives found another phone, belonging to his son, Elijah. And what they found in his messages opened another dark chapter. Because it turned out Elijah knew about the relationship. Long before Jamal died. Elijah's phone told a story no one saw coming. In the weeks leading up to Jamal's death, the texts between Elijah and Jamal had shifted. At first, they were like any pair of best friends, memes, music links, girls at school. But then the tone darkened. "Jamal. You ever feel like someone's watching you in your own house?" "Elijah. What are you talking about?" "Jamal. Your dad. I think he knows." "Elijah. Knows what?" Jamal never responded. And then, a few days later, Elijah sent this. "You better not be doing anything stupid, bro. Don't mess up my family." Detectives poured through more messages. Late-night voice notes. Missed calls. A screenshot Jamal had sent to Elijah, showing a cropped photo of him in bed, with part of a man's arm behind him. The tattoo matched the one on Pastor Gerald's forearm. Elijah knew. But he never told anyone. He was confronted during questioning. At first, he denied everything. Said he had no idea about the relationship. That Jamal was acting weird but never said why. Then police showed him the texts. The photos. That's when Elijah cracked. He admitted Jamal had confided in him, once. A month before he vanished. Jamal had pulled him aside and said he was seeing someone. Someone older. Someone who couldn't be named. Elijah thought it was a joke. But then he saw a message on Jamal's phone pop up during a party. A heart emoji. From a number he recognized. His dad's. He said he didn't believe it at first. Couldn't. But the signs were all there. The long talks behind closed doors. The strange tension. The way his father looked at Jamal during Sunday dinner. Still, he never told anyone. Not his mother. Not police. Not even Jamal. And that silence may have been the final nail. Because according to Elijah, Jamal had said something else in that conversation. Something that chilled detectives to the core. Jamal said, "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident." The weight of guilt on Elijah's face was unmistakable. His eyes red. His hands shaking. "I thought he was being dramatic," he said. "I didn't think my dad was capable of something like that." But Pastor Gerald Miles wasn't just capable. He was calculated. And with that confession, the case was airtight. Gerald was indicted on charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, abuse of a corpse, and destruction of evidence. The trial would become one of the most talked-about cases in Mississippi's history. But for Jamal's mother, Shonda, none of it mattered. Because her son was still gone. And the man who claimed to love him, had buried him like trash. The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. News vans lined the courthouse steps. Reporters fought for space. Church members sat in stunned silence, many still wearing their Sunday best, as if clinging to the image of the man they once called pastor. But the man who stood before the judge wasn't the shepherd they remembered. Gerald Miles wore a muted gray suit. Shackles around his ankles. His face expressionless. The prosecution came in hard. They laid it out plainly. Gerald Miles groomed Jamal Carter. Used his position of power to manipulate him. And when Jamal threatened to expose their relationship, he killed him in cold blood. They showed the recovered text messages. The photographs. The cloud-synced footage from the church. And finally, the confession. Played aloud in the courtroom. Gerald's voice, calm and cold. "I couldn't let him destroy everything I built." Gasps echoed through the gallery. Shonda Carter covered her mouth and wept. Elijah sat stone-faced, barely blinking. Then came the defense. They didn't deny the relationship. Instead, they painted Gerald as a conflicted man, a religious leader trapped by his own shame. They argued that Jamal was the one pushing boundaries. That the killing wasn't premeditated, but a tragic accident during a heated argument. A moment of weakness, not murder. The jury didn't buy it. Especially after the forensic pathologist took the stand. He described the trauma to Jamal's body. The force of the blows. The pressure marks around his neck. The time it would have taken to strangle him. This wasn't sudden rage. This was controlled. Intentional. Then came Elijah. He sat before the court and admitted what he'd hidden. That he knew about the relationship. That he hadn't said anything. That Jamal told him, "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident." By the end of his testimony, Elijah broke down. He turned toward Shonda and said through tears, "I'm sorry. I should have protected him. I should have believed him." And finally, Shonda Carter herself took the stand. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just spoke. She talked about Jamal's laugh. His music. His dreams. How he wanted to open a studio and buy her a house. How he never got the chance. Then she looked Gerald straight in the eye. "You sat at my table," she said. "You prayed with us. You hugged my boy like he was yours. Then you left him in the dirt like he was nothing." The silence was deafening. The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty. On all counts. First-degree murder. Obstruction. Abuse of a corpse. Destruction of evidence. Gerald Miles was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no reaction. No tears. No remorse. But the story didn't end with the conviction. Because after the trial, the church closed its doors. Cornerstone Baptist dissolved. Membership dropped overnight. No one could look at the pulpit the same again. Cynthia Miles filed for divorce and moved out of state. Elijah withdrew from school and left town. He hasn't been seen publicly since. And Shonda? She still visits Jamal's grave every Sunday. Still brings fresh flowers. Still plays his music in the car on her way there. Because for her, the trial wasn't closure. It was just confirmation. That everything she feared was true. And that the man who stole her son's life wore a cross around his neck while doing it. The trial was over. The verdict was final. But in Jackson, Mississippi, the ripple effects were just beginning. Whispers moved through the community like smoke, silent, choking, impossible to escape. Some church members couldn't bear to speak Gerald's name. Others defended him even after the conviction, claiming he was set up by the devil. A few claimed the relationship was fake, fabricated to ruin his legacy. But the evidence didn't lie. The messages. The footage. The confession. It was all there, in black and white. Still, the town stayed divided. Between those who believed the truth, and those who couldn't let go of the lie. Outside the courtroom, a makeshift memorial had been built at the edge of the woods where Jamal's body was found. Candles. Flowers. A picture of him smiling, framed in glass. A handwritten note read, "You were more than a secret. You were loved." But in the digital world, the story had gone viral. Podcasts. True crime YouTubers. TikTok sleuths. Everyone had a theory. Everyone wanted answers. How long had the relationship really been going on? Did anyone else in the church know? Was this Gerald's first time abusing power, or just the first time he got caught? Some internet users pointed to an old sermon, a now-deleted YouTube video where Gerald had preached about sins in the dark. He'd said, "The devil thrives in silence. But God sees everything done in secret." That clip resurfaced. Millions viewed it. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Meanwhile, Elijah Miles tried to disappear. Changed his number. Deleted his social media. He left town under a cloud of guilt so heavy, it nearly broke him. One anonymous source said he's living somewhere in Georgia now. Working at a small hardware store. Keeps to himself. Doesn't talk about the past. But Jamal's name still haunts him. And as for Shonda, she started a foundation in Jamal's name. A scholarship for Black LGBTQ+ youth. A fund for kids trying to escape silence. Trying to escape shame. She speaks at events now. Not often. Just enough. She says Jamal's story is bigger than the headlines. That what happened to her son wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. That silence kills. And love, when hidden too long, can turn into something dangerous. Today, the building that once housed Cornerstone Baptist Church sits empty. Weeds cover the front steps. The cross above the doorway has been taken down. But inside, the sanctuary still holds echoes. The kind you can feel if you stand there long enough. The echo of a young boy's laughter. The echo of a lie so deep it swallowed the truth. And the echo of a man who was supposed to guide others to God, but instead led a young soul straight into the dark. Because some sins aren't buried in the grave. Some sins preach from the pulpit. And in the end, it wasn't just Jamal who lost his life. It was faith. It was family. It was the very idea that the people we trust the most aren't capable of the worst things imaginable. But they are. And Jamal Carter paid the price for a secret that should have never existed in the first place. Jamal Carter's story is a heartbreaking reminder that beneath even the most revered masks can lie secrets filled with pain, fear, and betrayal. A young life stolen not just by violence, but by silence, by the desperate need to hide a truth that shattered a family, a community, and faith itself. What would you have done if you were Elijah? Could you have faced the truth? Or stayed silent, trapped between loyalty and fear? Do you think justice was truly served? Or are there still questions left unanswered in the shadows? Share your thoughts below. I want to hear your theories. What part of this case shocked you the most? If you want more stories that dive deep into the hidden darkness behind closed doors, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. Because some secrets refuse to stay buried, and together, we'll uncover the truth.